Hi, besties. Our feature sponsor for this month is Your Destiny Essentials. Your Destiny Essentials instills the love of self, self-acceptance, self-worth, and a genuine love of others through handmade products infused with all natural, organic, and eco-friendly ingredients that are essential for healthier skin and hair. Products include rose oils, floral spritz, beard oil for men, body butter, and more. These items can be purchased on the YDE Skincare Co. Etsy shop. Get essentially healthier hair and skin today. Peace.
And now it's time for our favorite part of the menu, where we get to do tea time. So that is, of course, the meat of the conversation. And today we are again talking about black and white.
Mm-hmm.
So first, why don't we start off with what comes to mind? Like, how do you define acting white? I'll start with you, Chanel.
Yeah, so it's funny because I'm glad we moved the episode in this direction because it does bring up memories and thoughts. Just hearing that phrase, like, oh, you acting white. Because, we're all from Milwaukee. So I have a lot of family that live in Chicago. So when I would go visit them for summers, they would always be like, you sound white, you so proper, you talk white, you acting white. And I'm like, I'm just talking. I don't know. I don't know what's from what. So I do recall having that said to me quite a bit, like while I was younger. And even as an adult too, I've had men tell me like, oh, you sound so white, like you sound so proper. So I think in my head, that's what I think of, like the way I speak, my tone, my diction, just that makes me think like, oh, you're acting white.
But what does it mean?
So it means,
like, what's the undertone?
So I think the undertone is that you're educated, you're proper. I think that's the undertone. Like you think you're better than is the undertone.
Madam President, I almost slipped up there.
Yeah, I think for me, the same thing comes to mind is like speech and talking white. And I will say I had a transition in like the way I even sound to myself and words that I use from, like elementary to middle school to high school, college, and now career. And what I will say is a lot of it is just who you're around, right? And like settings and different things like that. But the first thing that comes to my mind is like speech. And then I think the undertone, like you said, is better than or uppity or something like that is the undertone instead of it just being who that individual is. But in some way that they can't do that and be true to who they are, right? Like they have to be put on airs or something like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
that's good.
I think of it as like devaluing Blackness. Like literally saying, this is so far away from Black that you abandoned it and now you're taking on someone else's frame of mind or what they do. I think about it in terms of speech. I definitely agree with speech, but I also think about it in terms of activities. Like if you're reading or if you work in a corporate setting, it could be the way that you dress, right? I think it's just the different elements of who people are, but people take those different attributes and then assign them to a race and say, this is white, this is Black. And the undertone is always that you sold out, basically.
Yeah.
Think about it in terms of you're selling out, because it's always said in a negative connotation.
Yeah, always. Like well, to me, I mean, it is like you said, like an undercut that, you're devaluing your Blackness, or it's, you're trying to be white, or that's what you're trying to aspire to. But like Scarlett said, like, it's not necessarily this is just who I am. Like, I can be authentically who I am, and I'm not trying to be white. Like, what is that? Like, when you really think about it, I think that used to always be my question. Like, what does that even mean, bro? Like, why would you say that to me? Like, clearly you can see I'm Black, but just because I want to speak a certain way, or, I want to experience certain things, that doesn't mean I'm not Black because I do those things. So I just think as a society that, and especially in the Black community, that you hear that so often, but it's just like, it has such a negative connotation. but people are doing good things. Like, it's not a bad thing to speak well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. But I guess I always wonder, why do I have to abandon my Blackness to do this activity or to speak this way?
Yeah.
You
Or
know?
why is it assumed that you are, right?
Right.
Because like how you like we're all native English speakers. So therefore the way we speak English, it shouldn't be tied to one type of like American or person, right? Because that is our first language. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. And it used to bother me when I was young, when, you know, my family would tell me that, like, oh, you sound white, you're so proper. But now I'm just like, no, that's just Chanel. Like, just because we don't speak the same doesn't make me any different, or it doesn't make me think that I'm better than you by any means or anything like that. So it used to really offend me, like hearing that, like, oh, you're acting white or you're trying to be white. But now I'm just like, but as Black people, like, we're multifaceted. Like, you cannot contain us or box us into one thing. So I think as I'm growing up and as I mature and just, you know, really being authentically who I am in my Blackness, that you cannot just box me in. So yeah, I try not to let it offend me as much.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that so I always wonder why. Okay. Have you ever said to somebody, you're acting white?
Yes. I'm pretty sure, because I'm not gonna use our platform on here lying, because somebody in 10 years might find a clip like, hey,
Right, run that back.
She said that this person was acting white. I'm pretty sure I have said that, and I'm sure the undertones were negative and, you know, trying to be like they either think they're better than, or they want to erase their Blackness. So I'm sure I've said that and use those undertones with it, especially when I see, like, I'm gonna just be real because it's our show and I can do that. So, you know, and you learn and you grow. But when I see, like, you know, Black boys, like I was watching Top Chef, for instance, and the guy, he had like a weird haircut. He was Black, but I could tell like he didn't have like a bliggity Black barber. Like I could tell. And I was like, I bet you his wife is white. Like, I know that, like, he's acting white. His haircut is a white haircut. It was like a buzz cut. So I was like, I bet you his wife is white. And when they showed his wife, she was white. So
my hypothesis.
you know, so, you know, I have done that just based off of people's appearance and how they sounds, like, oh, you're acting white. And, you know, but I don't know that man's background. Maybe that's just how he was raised and the experiences that he's had. So, you know, I would be lying if I was on here saying like, oh, I've never said that about somebody.
Yeah, you know, I don't think that I've ever said to someone or about somebody like, you're acting white, but I have used it in that context. Like, let's say something happened on the news and like, oh, a woman was found, her body was found and she was jogging. I'll be like, she's white. Like, in my head, I do like this almost like guessing game of like, okay, that girl was probably Black, this girl's probably white, that man's probably Black. Like, I always do that because I do subscribe certain things to be white or to be Black. So I'll be like, jogging at night with her headphones in? No, we wouldn't do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Although I'm sure that there are lots of Black women that jog at night with headphones.
Yeah.
We ain't one of them, but
they ain't doing that.
there have got to be some.
Yeah.
So I think that certain things like that, and then like if I see like a crime was committed and they describe what happened, I'll be like, all right, that sounds kind of Black.
Absolutely.
You know, like if it's like a petty crime,
yeah,
I'll be like, yeah, that sounds like, you know, the guy's probably Black.
It's funny.
And there's also times where, you know, I can see the police pulling people over and I'll be like, Lord, please don't let them be Black. Like, that's my prayer as I'm driving by.
Yeah.
So
ooh, I totally get it. And they do that on the Breakfast Club as well. Like, they'll read like a headline of like, okay, guess what race they are.
Yeah, they do. Guess what race it is. Yes, you're right. They absolutely do.
So they do that on the Breakfast Club. But you know, I think that's just how we are as a society. We do kind of attribute those things, even though we don't want to and we should not do those things, but it's just, that's how it is and that's how it happens. And I'm not saying that that's a good thing, but typically for me, that's how it falls, where I can just kind of guess like, oh, they're probably white, or, you know.
I'll say this too though. I feel like today I said we out here doing white people stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So today we went to Cave of the Mounds, which is a cave over in Blue Mound, Wisconsin, which all to me sounds very white.
All of this.
All of those things. I mean, y'all got y'all activewear.
Yes. And guess how many black people were there?
Well, and guess
Including
how many
us.
black people were there?
Including us.
I'm pretty sure it was just us. Did you see it?
And one man.
It was a man.
Oh, there was a man.
And there was a well, she looked mixed, but she black.
Yeah, she was mixed.
It was 6.
Mhm.
So 4 of us.
Yeah.
And one of them.
6
Okay.
black people.
Got it. Okay. So I mean, I do feel like I do that. Scarlett, what do you think? Do you tend to
All the time. Like I live in Colorado, so I'll be like, man, this is some white people stuff. Like all the time. But what I did realize is that I really actually enjoy certain activities, like being out in nature, different things like that, right? Because I think a lot of it is, you know, especially in the sun, like, oh, I don't want to get darker, or I don't want to do this, or I want to do that. But the way being outside makes me feel, it like is part of me that I didn't get to connect to until I got older. But yeah, I'm always like, that's some white people stuff.
Yeah, but now I'm like, sign me up for the white people stuff.
For
like,
sure.
That's how I am now. You know, we saw this on TikTok and I was dropped it in the group chat and y'all were like, hell yeah, we're in. So we did it, right?
Yeah.
But I think that too, as I grow older, I'm starting to have more of an appreciation just for nature. Like, you cannot tear me away from the mountains. Like, that is probably the most beautiful sight to me, is to be able to see the Colorado mountains. Like, those are just, I never get tired of seeing it.
Yeah.
Waterfalls. I feel like we chasing waterfalls all the daggone time.
Mhm.
We're always doing that.
Yeah.
You know, and then too, even when I'm at work, I work from home, but I like leave and go to the park now to go on walks.
Hey.
So yeah, let me get my steps in, you know, because I like the scenery. I like the sun. I feel like it does change my mood and just makes me feel amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care what happened that day at work, Control Alt Delete. I'm going for this little walk. Leave me alone. I'm minding my business. And then I come back and I can take on the world, you know?
Absolutely. But, and I love what you both just said, but I love how we're like changing the narrative of what we thought was typically like white people stuff, like going to a cave, or, you know, there are so many like Black runners now. Like, there are running groups of Black people just running. Shout out to Fear MKE that they have their run group here of Black and brown people. But I love how we're just changing the narrative of what we thought we were excluded from. And now we're being a part of it, but still being authentically who we are. So we have Bliggity Black runs, we have bike groups now, so people are cycling and biking everywhere. So I think it is a dope time to recognize that we are not excluded from these spaces. We just have to have some type of experience to it.
And I would say exposure to it, right?
There you go.
Exposure and access to it, right? I mean, if you ain't never been to Colorado, right, you don't get to see the mountains, right? Yeah. And if I want to move there for work, I wouldn't see that, right? But everybody don't get a chance to go to a lake either, right? And so taking advantage of the things that we do have. Yeah.
Yeah, that is very true.
That's very true. Absolutely. I don't know. I think that, I guess I'm wondering, when I was younger, did I exclude myself because I thought that's not for me, because maybe I just wasn't exposed. Because to be quite honest, like Fear MKE, shouts out to them.
Yeah.
But I remember when I used to say, we don't run.
Yeah, I used to say that too.
We would walk.
Yeah.
Because when I was younger, my mom would always go on walks. Like, she would go walk for a couple miles, come back, go to the gym. Like, she would do stuff like that. But Sherry Renee's mom has never ran.
Yeah.
So I was just like, we don't run. But then, remember we took that workout class with Butterfly?
Yeah.
And she would make us go outside and run.
That was
and they had shirts that said Black girls run. And I was like, not this one.
Yeah. No,
and she would be like, oh no, you gonna run.
Yes, you're gonna run. And it's so funny because we would say, like, we only run like if we need to, like if we're in danger.
If other people run.
If other people running.
If other people run, Black people will just start running and not know, right?
Following the crowd. But other than that, like, if my life is not immediately being threatened, I'm not about to run. But it is great to see that people really do like that. Like, they want to run. They go every week, and it's dope to see, like, that we're changing what what Blackness is, and just opening it up to so many different things. And I'm glad that we're starting to do that. It's crazy thinking like now, like it's 2021, that we're in this space. Like it's still taking us a lot to progress to get out of what we thought we were excluded from.
And things that we really were excluded from, right? And not to go down this, but you know, there were times where we couldn't go to certain beaches or certain pools, and we couldn't do certain things without like persecution, right? And so that fear is passed down even if it's not said, right?
Yes, it is.
By like not ever taking your kids to the lake, or by not ever going to these places, right? And so you don't understand why, but it was to keep you safe.
That's true.
And so a lot of stuff that we haven't been exposed to or haven't tried, how much of it was just passed down to us to keep us safe, right? And if you're a Black person running down the street, well, why are they running? Like pulling you over or saying like, okay, what are you doing here? You must be, you know, robbing, stealing, doing whatever, right? So we don't run, right? All to keep us safe. So
that is very true.
It's those patterns and pathologies, right? Like you said, it doesn't necessarily have to be that we don't like it or we don't want to do it. It's just that, I remember when we were all at Marquette, I remember my mom came to pick me up this one night. I got in the car and there was a white girl running with her headphones in at night. And my mom blew her horn at her, rolling down the window like, you this is not safe. Don't do this. Da 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 da. Like just kind of going off on the girl. And I'm telling my mom, you're scaring her. You're the threat. You're telling her about this threat, but it's you.
Yeah.
You know, you're literally intimidating this girl. And then as we kept going, I pointed out how many other white girls were running with their headphones in at night. And my mom was just like, if I ever catch you out here, and I told her, I don't run. You don't have to worry about that.
That's one thing you ain't got to worry about.
You ain't got to worry about me out here. I called you. Remember, you came to pick me up.
Like, look, I need a ride. I'm not running.
I need a ride. That's what this is. But I do think that that's the fear that you're talking about. Yeah. My mom put the fear in that girl.
Yeah.
As I believe she should have.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's fear, but sometimes it's also common sense, right? Like if you're gonna be out at night, like why you got your headphones on or why are you doing this, right? Like
especially
and some things,
yep.
And some things is just like you may be oblivious to because you've always done this in the area that you come from, so you think you can do this area. But I think as Black people, we know that we may have to change our conduct depending on where we are. And we have to move always with our safety on our mind. And they don't have to have that. Like they have the luxury of just moving through life how they want.
Yeah.
More often than we do. So
I think that safety is probably our number one priority whenever we do anything. Because even when I do go to the park real quick, so you know, when you're going to exercise, you take the minimal amount of stuff, right? I don't, because I'm like, nope, I need my ID because I'm the only Black person at this park. So,
oh, wow.
I need my ID. I need to figure, you know what I mean? Like I need to have certain things. So I'm going to have my whole purse should anything happen.
That is funny.
I need both my phones. Like I need to figure this out because I don't want to be caught without something. So I think that safety is always the thing that's either in the forefront or it's just in the back of our mind where it's like, okay, what precautions do I need to take to do this? So
yeah, I think Scarlett also brought up something too about like just, you know, taking your kids to the lake. So that made me think about like how Black people don't swim traditionally. Black people don't swim. And there's a link to that. We know why Black people are afraid of water. At least we do because we're Black. But the slave trade was a real thing and boats and waters and Black people just was not it. Like we was not on that. But it's interesting when you talk about exposure, like I've always been the one to want to expose, you know, my kid to pools and the water and the ocean, just because I got that experience too as a kid. Like I'm glad somebody took me and exposed me to it so that we can kind of break those cycles to expose them to it as well so that they're not afraid to go swimming or afraid to be in the water. So that just made me think about that when you said that. So I think exposure is huge. And I think just knowing the whys of why, you know.
So we can break those cycles and change that narrative. Yeah, I agree. Because I told y'all earlier, I said, when Black people say they're going to swim, they really mean I'm going to put on a swimsuit and maybe put my feet in. That's like, I used to go swimming for real.
Yeah,
like when my mom would go work out, me and my brother would go to the YMCA, to the pool and swim for real.
Yes.
So
every weekend, like again,
now hair is an issue.
It was, but even as a kid, like my aunt would take us. So I would spend my summers in Chicago with my aunt and my cousin, And she would just drop us off at the pool. Like in the morning, like at 9 o'clock, I'm gonna drop you off. I'll be back at this time. So we would spend our whole time at the pool, like kicking it, like swimming, doing whatever. Like I remember that. And then when I got to high school and we had to take swim, like I wasn't worried about it because I had already been exposed to it when like other classmates were like, oh my God, like I don't get in the water. Like we don't do this. But for me, I was just like, I got this, but I still didn't want to do it. It was like third hour. So that was another story.
Yeah. And like I said, hair's a real thing.
Hair's a real thing.
But I know when me and my brother used to go, I used to actually take our locker key and throw it on the deep end and then go swim and find it. Because I was like, I want to do it.
Yes.
But it also makes me think of the fact that like, it made me think about cleanliness because I know for me, when I was young, my mom would take me to the water and let me swim, but she would never let me swim in like lake water. She would never let me play in sand. She would never so my mom was a teacher. She would let the other kids, and she'd be like, well, now you sit over there. So all the little white kids would be playing in the sand, get in the water. But I think that like, we have this, I think that we've developed this thing about cleanliness, which I'm not mad at.
Yeah.
But I feel like Black people are always like, we wash dishes with bleach. Like we do these certain things. And I always was wondering why. And I was thinking, is that linked back to slavery too? Because back then they didn't want to even touch us. So was it like, you better like bleach this thing down, and they made us clean? So maybe we were the ones that did it. I'm making this up. I don't know.
But it could be like we just manifested it differently, like being told that we were dirty and we, you know,
that could be it too. Like a psychological thing.
We just manifested it or psychologically transcribed it like differently, which is weird. So how did that make you feel like growing up? Because we've been to a bunch of beaches. So what's sand like for you? Like
now I want to do it, but afterwards I'm like, we need to get in the shower, don't touch, and then keep those clothes separate, not equal. Like it's a whole thing in the suitcase, right? I need the contaminated things in its own bag. Like it's a thing.
That is so.
But my mom is also very much like a germaphobe, and my brother is like that too, and very much, you know, everything's got to be clean and whatever. My mom was the one who, me and my brother could be sitting down at the dinner table. If you let go of your cup, you look around like, where is it? She is literally washing it.
Listen, she's like, we don't keep
actively
dishes.
washing. Yeah. Oh no,
Ain't no dishes in my sink.
Ain't no dishes in my sink.
She ain't wrong. Definitely. So, I love that. So so think back to your childhood till now. So what are some white things, in air quotes, that you've done?
I guess it depends on if we accept that they're white or not. But I know, like, I've always been a bookworm, right? So I'm always reading, and I think some people subscribe that to be a white characteristic. I was told there was a time when me and my brother went to a different school, and when we got there, they said, you speak white. Although I will say, I do think my dialect has changed. Even when I listen to the podcast, like season 1 or year 1 or however we want to call it, we sound completely different than how we sound now. I think some activities like going to the caves today, riding through the mountains, maybe going to Niagara Falls, that might be a little white, you know, maybe what did we do in Cancun? We swam in the cave, we zip lined.
We did swim in the cave.
We swam in the cave.
I forgot about that. Yeah. The cenote.
The cenote, yes.
So
I forgot that might be considered white, you know.
I think so. But it's exposure, like we've been exposed to it. So now, you know, we can.
You can't keep me away from the mountains. Okay.
Yeah. So now we got to keep doing it.
Yes.
Keep on doing it. What about you, Scarlett? What are some quote unquote white things that you've done?
Living in Colorado. I'm just
right. That's number one.
Number one, right? Living in Colorado. I think drinking beer. As
really?
A woman.
Wow. Yeah.
I would agree with that.
I would agree with that.
Or is that maybe that's not a Wisconsin thing.
Like most Black women especially are not beer drinkers,
right? Spirits and liquors.
Yep.
That's
and
true.
So and I think living in Colorado, right, because there's like a lot of microbrews and different things like that, and just being exposed to a lot of different stuff, it's something that I, you know, almost became a connoisseur of, right? Like I'm not drinking like natural ice, you know what I'm saying? Like, now I'm being bougie in classes, right? I'm not doing
that's a whole nother episode.
Right. But
that's another episode.
But you know, like even spotted cow, like, you know, micro brews, small brews, like different things like that. And and having that exposure versus like, you know, I think a lot of people are like, oh no, like who drinks beer, right? Or it's just super masculine. But I also think it's just more white than it is like Black people in general that do that. I think I read a lot too, like especially when I was younger, but it would be like American Girls, but I'm reading the Addie books, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Or like I am reading, but I'm reading these like Walter D. Meyer books or these like other like Black authors, but people can't see that, right? Like I'm still experiencing the Black culture.
Making good grades. I feel like people thought that was white.
And I think traveling in general, right? Like I just think, especially right, if you've been out the country, especially outside of like North America, right? Like it's one thing to go to Mexico, it's one thing to go to Jamaica. But if you can be like, oh, you went to Africa, right? Like we went to Africa 2 years ago or something like that. And people were like, oh, you went on a mission. No, I literally went for vacation, right? And that whole concept.
We went on a mission.
Like
that's interesting.
Like people are like,
you went to help the orphanage.
Yeah, I'm like, no, they don't need our help. Like,
exactly that part. They don't even need our help.
Right. So so just like traveling in general and being open to traveling or having a passport, right? Like I think is one of those other things. But I do think it starts with exposure, right? And it came in college, right? Like the first time I went out the country was in college. And then my sister studied abroad and that exposed me to Europe because I went to visit her over there, right? So I think going to college can almost be seen as like acting white, especially if you go to a PWI.
Especially if you go to a white school, like we did.
And but I think it does give us exposure to things that we may not have had when we were younger, right?
Remember they called us the Pico Clique?
Yes. We was the PCC for life.
And we still are for life.
Yes. Or Sherry, do you remember the time we were just walking down the street and that like Black man who maybe was at the mission who wasn't, and he was like, look at y'all acting white, and we were literally walking down the street. Like that's all we were doing.
We didn't do anything. We were just minding our business.
Sir, what?
He said, look at y'all.
And I don't know if we had like a Marquette hoodie on or whatever it was.
We might have had on our Picos. We was part of the Pico Clique.
But he was like, look at y'all acting white. And we were like, what?
It was like, we literally, hi, first of all. Hello, sir.
I'm crying. Like, bro.
But we were around campus and that association, like, okay, well, y'all probably go to school here, so now.
What are you, a student?
He said, look at y'all acting white. Like,
I'm saying, just like that, though. It's like,
he was just literally just walking.
So I'm trying to get across the street. Like that.
Oh my God. I will say this though, you and I did the color run and they was throwing color and everything everywhere. And I remember I was thinking like, hold on now.
See my hair.
What's going on with my hair? Right? But I feel like, again, back to the cleanliness, we did all these extra stuff. Like we put garbage bags like all throughout the car because we was like, ain't no color getting up in here.
And we put on like wigs that we knew we were going to get rid of.
Dispose of. Yeah. We were like, this ain't going to get in my hair.
Yeah. But we were covered in color. Like it was insane.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was really
I want to do that stuff.
Listen, again. I do want to do that too. So I'm gonna have to add that to this. That would be fun. But no, I definitely agree with all those things. I think a lot of mine as well comes into like food because I like.
Oh yes.
So my palate is a little different from like.
It's a little sedity.
It's a little bougie. So if I'm bougie anything, it's definitely going to be like eating and food, and I know a lot about food because I watch a lot of food stuff. So just again, it's that exposure. Like I expose myself to it to learn like different words that have to do with food and culinary and things like that. So I think
you're
that's
like, there's a dash of blah blah, and I'm like, oh my God,
yes.
It's
you
meat.
When you have to.
It's a bouille bun
taste,
and I'll be like, okay, girl.
That's where my acting white will come out. Is just that, like, I like food, and then just I feel like I was exposed to so much, like young, like we were talking about this in the car, but like I've been kayaking before and stuff like that, like stuff like that. I was exposed to because of just different programming that I was in the city. So I don't think I've ever would have just been like, let me go kayaking. Like we went on the Dennis Sullivan ship. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Like we were on a whole ship, like a real ship, not a cruise, but like a ship. I don't know what else it's called, but like just exposure to things like that, you know, those are things that people would consider acting white, like this is not for you. But I'm glad we're here to say like this is for us. Like we're changing that. Like Black people can do whatever we want to do, and have really great authentic experiences with it.
Shouts out to Destiny in the chat. She says, I love traveling abroad and it shouldn't be considered a quote unquote white thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
It is sad.
I agree, Destiny.
I agree.
You preaching to us.
I agree. But along with that, because I think I'm new to like the abroad traveling, just because I hadn't had a passport, but I do think I had that in my head. Like this is so far removed from what you can do and what you're able to do. So it took me a long time to like get a passport to be like, okay, I'm gonna get one and I'm gonna pay for it. I'm gonna get my son one. Like we gonna be out here. So I think now that I have it, it's like, well, why did I wait so long? Like I should have did this a long time ago. Like it wasn't nothing serious. Like, dang, get your birth certificate, take a picture, go. Like take a picture. Just do what you need to do to get it. So it was like I think some of us as Black people, like we put ourselves in fear because we think that space is not appropriate for you, or that space is not for you because the lack of exposure. Like nobody in my family was traveling abroad, so I didn't know.
The first time I traveled abroad was for work. I went to Italy and Germany, and so I had to get a passport for work.
Yeah,
but I will say this: your girl Googled Black in Italy, Black in Germany. I watched vlogs because I wanted to understand what is my experience going to be here. What am I going to be faced with? You know, what am I going to have to do? Because when I went to, where did I go? When I went to Colombia, racism was alive and well. They treated me like shit.
In Colombia?
Yes, they did. Beautiful place. I would like to go back because I mean, hey, it's racism is racism.
I mean,
and when I was traveling to these three places, who got caught up in the airport? Me. And I had to tell them I'm with those white men right there.
Right, look, hey, I'm with them.
I'm with them.
That's crazy. In Colombia, like the slave ships didn't go through there because they did.
Girl, they did. But you know, they have that like classism and racism and like
colorism and all of that. And but you know what? There was a shop that I went to that was for like to get souvenirs and stuff. Because I was like, am I just being, you know how you try to figure it out? Because I was like, they only talk to him.
Just hypersensitive.
I keep asking them, like, what is going on? Am I, you know, is this a cultural thing? Yeah. Because sometimes it's not always racism, right? So you need to know what's going on. But no, they had a whole board that talked about it. And they were talking about how it's so prevalent now. And I was like, okay, I'm not, because, you know, if I know what I'm dealing with, then I will prepare myself for it. But I think that, again, that safety that Scarlett talked about, I'm sorry, Madam President, talked about, you know, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
I didn't really do that when we went to Cancun because I was like, plenty of Black people have been there.
Right.
And it's very touristy.
It's
right?
touristy.
Very touristy, like whatever.
Yeah. So we definitely, I didn't feel that.
Oh,
like,
and then too, I have a cousin that studies abroad in Germany, and they don't think that she can speak. I'm sorry, not Germany. Where's she at? And darn it, in Russia.
Wow. I heard that.
They don't think that she understands what they're saying. They have called her all kinds of names, said all kinds of stuff.
I've watched videos about that, like Black people in Russia and their experience.
Oh yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah. It's crazy. So,
and I always make sure like that I have enough money. Should anything happen, your girl's coming home.
Yeah. That's
and I always tell people, landed, made it. I'm here doing this.
Got to.
Don't lose me in a different country. That's what's not gonna happen.
Yeah, nah, definitely have to make sure you're staying up on that. But you know, racism is not exclusive to America. Like,
oh, absolutely not.
So we're learning that, you know,
but I thought it would be worse in Germany, just because I was thinking about, you know, the whole Aryan superiority, the blonde hair, the blue eyes. I was like, oh, it's about to be on it. Yeah. But no, they just treated me like American. It was like more American and less Black.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. Shout out to Germany.
Yeah. Hell, I want to go back.
Let's go back. Right. Go back to Germany. Drink some beer.
Yeah. I did drink beer when I was in Germany. Now I would never do that back home. I mean, never. But in Germany, your girl
listen,
when in Rome.
Exactly. When in Rome, you got to. You got to do what they do. So I love that. But no, definitely like thinking about different experiences. And I know we talked earlier too, just about today. Oh, I'm pulling all my lashes off. Going to this cave. So like Sherry Renee mentioned, we went to the Cave of the Mounds today. It's in Blue Mound, Wisconsin. And it's funny because none of us knew about Blue Mound, Wisconsin. It's number one.
Yeah, who knew? I thought it was just a street.
We thought it was a street name. There is a street name in Milwaukee called Blue Mound. So we like, okay, the street, like that's close, but no, it's the actual city.
Maybe it was like an hour and a half away.
Yeah, yes.
Something like
so
that.
like west of Madison area. So like west near Madison. So we went there today, not really knowing what to expect. We knew we were going to see a cave, so that was obvious due to the title, but not really knowing. So I think when we got there, all of our minds were like blown by what we saw, and what was there just in our own backyards, because we're all, we're city girls. We literally, we are from Milwaukee, born and raised. Scarlett now lives in Colorado, but she's still, Milwaukee is home. Like when she comes here, this is what
I still live in the city,
and you still live in the city, absolutely. So to experience that today,
make it seem like you live in the mountains, right?
Like you just Paul Bunyan out there,
right? I live in the city.
So first of all, I'm still a city girl in Colorado. But yeah, I think today like really opened my mind, and I think when I first got there, I was a little defensive, like just feeling my Blackness in this non-Black space. And then I have on this shirt that says like Black is a blessing. So people were looking at that. Like,
I feel like you do that on purpose.
I do. And I do.
Like anytime we go into a white space, you're like, where's my Black shirt? Where's my bliggity black, extra Black?
I do it on purpose. And I told Scarlett that in the car. Like I just like being like extra Black in white spaces. Because again, I feel like, why shouldn't I? Them being uncomfortable don't got nothing to do with me. But I did, I just felt like some of the stares and like looking at us like, why are they here? Like, and I could have just been making it up because this was a new experience for me. Like I've never done something like this. But once I just started to like really enjoy what was in front of me and the scenery and hanging out with my friends, I was like, okay, I don't care. Like, this is for me. Like, this is like super fantastic experience. I'm so glad we went there.
Yeah. I will say this. So I was the driver. So there were moments where I was like, please don't pull me over today.
Yeah, that's a real,
because, man. A group of Black girls in the car could be seen as trouble.
That's
sometimes, real. Depending on who has the perspective. And I did keep commenting on the way there saying like, this is looking pretty white.
Yeah.
So I did say that a few times. I definitely felt the stares. And then too, I do have these faux locks in my hair right now too. And I think that I get a whole different response based on my hair and what I'm wearing. So I think that plays a part in it too. And then I even made a comment when the girl handed us tickets, because they were like Black tickets and there was white tickets. And I said, well, we got the white tickets. And then I was like, but I don't know if I would have been okay if they gave us the Black one. So look, I don't know. So I think that race really does play a factor in how I see things. But I always wonder, am I contributing to the stereotypes?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when I, in my own mind, am going through life and boxing things in and seeing things a certain way, then should I be upset when I show up with a supplier and they don't expect me to be me? When they heard about me and then I show up, right? And I'm not what they expected, do I have the right to be offended?
That's good. No, that's a good point. And
but before I forget, so y'all ponder on that.
Okay, yeah, I'm definitely like that.
Girl, Destiny's recommended that we go to Tokyo, and you know what, Destiny?
Oh, I've heard that.
I'm glad you said that because that is on my list of things to do. I absolutely got to get to Japan, and I specifically did put Tokyo. She said I loved it. I did not experience much racism. What does that mean, Destiny?
Right,
just a dash.
But I love that she brought that up because I watch a lot of documentaries, and there's a shoe documentary and they talk about like just hip hop culture in Tokyo and how they like value like Black culture.
And they do a lot of those dance.
Yeah. So I would absolutely love to go to Tokyo.
I'm going.
I've been trying to get out there. One of my sorors, shout out to my soror, Monique Gardner. Now she got married, but she was on our show as well talking about realty. But yeah, her husband plays for their national team in Tokyo, so they live out there. So she's always like, yeah, you and your son come out here, like come see it. Like it just looks beautiful. Like
I'm absolutely going. I'm going to all those places that are on my list.
So shout out to Destiny and unique for Tokyo looks dope, and that's good. So definitely throw that in the chat. Like, what was your experience like in Tokyo?
Yeah, what do you mean by much racism?
Right. Just a tinge of racism,
just a dash. Okay, she said just a sprinkle,
just a little bit of racism here and there. But it's funny because there's another young lady that I follow on Instagram. I don't know her. She's your soror though. I don't know if you know Danielle Jacobs.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I think so.
Anywho, but she's an educator. But she lives out in Shanghai, like in China. And it's so interesting watching her stories and how sharing her experiences of like teaching out in China, because a lot of the teachers that she worked with, it's a lot of Black people out there in China, which is crazy. And, they're just living their best, like authentic selves. Like, people stare at them sometimes, and, the people who are from China or Chinese people like will stare at them and look at them, but they're still being authentically who they are. Like, it ain't no code switching or anything like that. So it's always dope to like watch Black people be abroad in other countries and how they live their lives. So I think that's really tight.
How we live our lives as people.
Mm-hmm.
So so that brings me back to the question of, so we obviously have a lens by which we're experiencing life, and we're classifying things as white or Black. So then should we be upset, or is it okay for us to even be upset if someone isn't expecting us? Scarlett, Madam President, you just got an amazing new promotion. So I'm sure that, people are speaking with your stakeholders saying, oh, the new insert title here will meet with you next week, blah, 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 blah. So, our brain fills in the gaps, right?
Mm-hmm.
All they know is your name. They probably know what you used to do and what you're supposed to do now. So they're going to come up with some sort of idea of what they think you should look like and who you are. And a lot of times they just want to lie with reality.
Yeah. And I think my org is different because it is mostly people of color, right? Like our CEO was a Latina. Our regional executive directors in my region was a Black man, Black woman, Black man, right?
Okay.
So I do think though, once you get to a certain level, the expectation is, even if people like at the site level are people of color, like what does top leadership look like? And senior leadership. And we're lucky enough to have that, but I do think it can throw people off a lot of times. But I think in other spaces, when I enter or when people just see my name on paper, then that connection is weird. Because I was sitting in class once and they were like looking for Misha, and the professor was looking at me like, Misha? And I'm like, that's not me. And then
I did not say here, therefore.
I'm like, sir, come on, please.
Not even my name.
Right. But then, when they get to Scarlett, it's like, oh, wow, such a wonderful name. And I'm like, is it? Or are you just so shocked and you don't know what else to say in this moment? So I do think not always like, whether it's job or name or whatever, then the image matches what they've already put together, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because I'm not sure if my name matches like my title or any of that, but I think what's most important when, people do read, my credentials and you're the curriculum coordinator for this school, I definitely always try to come in just being me and knowing what I need to know in my position, like coming strong with my job title and what my role is here. So I do have a lot of times where I have to speak on behalf of my organization that I work for. So I always try to make sure that I'm representing the organization well, if we were Black, white, or whatever. But again, I too work for an organization that's mostly Black people. So it's definitely, we try to come in the room and just be a representative for the organization that we represent. So we represent 5-star early childhood education. Like, this is what we do. So when we come to that table, like, we're stating those facts and stats about what it is that we do and why we do what we do, despite just having a full Black staff. So we're coming in with just the facts, if that makes sense. So we want you to know that.
And I think, right, like being Black and in education, like our students need to see that.
Absolutely.
Right? And how you can be authentically who you are as an individual and be good at your job.
Yeah.
And be, grow and do all these things and not have to somehow remove your Blackness. Because I think even early on, like with the idea of going to college, like, do I have to be something that I'm not in order to gain this? Can I still be a Black woman? Can I still listen to rap or hip hop or do all these things when you don't know anybody else that really went to college, right? And so I think that representation is so important. And you working with little kids and then you working with like college students,
Absolutely.
you know?
I totally agree with that. And like I said, at the one of the last events that we've done, because we're trying to do a lot of like marketing. This is, I don't know if I'm on topic, but whatever. At my organization, we're doing a lot of marketing to get people aware of, you know, what we offer. And I did speak on behalf of our organization, and I told them like most of our leadership at our school, not even most, all of the leadership in my school is Black men and women. Like that's what we have. So when you send your child to our organization, this is what they're going to see every day. So 90% of the teachers are Black, 100% of the admin leadership team is Black. So this is what we want them to see. And even we've got, I think like half of our board members are Black people. So it's just, we're really about, you know, having the kids see reflections of them, which is really important. Did Destiny respond? I saw you in the chat.
That is amazing. What a blessing it is to be at organizations that are so heavily Black. So Destiny said, correction, it was more of a cultural shock to get people of color, but I visited those cities that had more of a Japanese culture. I think they were shocked more than anything that I visited those places. I like visiting traditional areas of a country, not just the touristy area. Same here.
Good, yeah.
That's what I did in Colombia. I had the chance to kind of do the touristy stuff, but then also like do the traditional stuff.
That's what's up.
And I feel like even when we went to LA, it's different because there was a time when we did all the touristy stuff. Yeah. And then I feel like shouts out to Keith Goodman. When we were out there, he took us to like, this is where you go to get the real soul food. But I know that y'all went to, where did we go? Roscoe's.
Oh, we went to Roscoe's, yeah.
But this is where you really go.
Shout out to Danny. Danny took us to that soul food spot. Yes, that was amazing. Yeah. So yeah, it definitely is like a wonderful experience to experience like the culture within that. Like if you're going to a city or another country or something like that. I think that's amazing to do that.
But no, like I was saying, what a blessing it is to be a part of organizations where you can show up authentically you, or you at least feel like you can show up authentically you. I think that it can be different in corporate America because think that you do a lot of explaining why you're here, right? And I think that for me, I have over 90 views on LinkedIn every week. You know what I mean? And it's usually people trying to figure out my credentials. Why are you here? What do you do again here now?
Wow.
Are you taking notes? No. You know, like what? You know, and there are times where I feel like I have to sort of over explain what I do, you know, so it's just weird. There's even been trips, even when I went to, Colombia? So I was new in my role, right? So they had never met me. I show up and they kept trying, the organization that we were visiting, that we were looking to do business with, they kept explaining to the white engineers in the room what makes them unique and why they should get this business. And the white engineers kept saying, well, you really should be telling that to Sherry because she's the one that makes that decision. But they just kept, and I just sat there and let them do it. Show me who you really are. Because if you can't respect me, right,
then I don't know how we got to do business.
I don't know,
right.
I don't know.
I don't even know. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think that, you know, and also I think being part of corporate America could be considered acting white.
True.
Absolutely. And then I think it could be having faux locks is acting Black.
Oh my God.
Looking Black.
Acting Black.
With your sister girl checks.
Not the sister girl checks. But yeah.
But I'm glad you brought that up because I think there is a flip side to this coin. So right now we're talking about like acting white. And then we see like, you know, we see non-Black people acting black. So you see like the flip side of it as well. So we'll see like, you know, white TikTokers with baby hair, like, I don't know, wearing cornrows, or I don't know.
With locks,
right. I don't know what it could be. But we definitely see that flip side of it as well.
Or like rapping or something like that.
Yeah. So, and I feel like that's
how do you feel when you see white people, quote unquote, acting?
Well, I feel like that's more of like appropriation like that stuff, like the hair, or like trying to darken your skin, or using like makeup that's like too dark for you. I think that's appropriation. I think acting Black is, you know, you see white people who maybe their neighborhood that they grew up in was predominantly Black. So of course they're going to pick up on like mannerisms or colloquialisms of Black culture, because that's what they were around. So I think that's like acting Black.
But I think that's different, right? Because I think if this is the environment in which you grew up in, and this is what you hear, and this is what you experience, how are you exposed to anything else?
Exactly. You know what I mean?
I
agree. But people outside of that will be
Yeah.
like, oh, you trying to act Black. But this is my environment.
But like for me, I can also feel when it's authentic to who you are and when you're putting on an act.
Yeah.
And it just feels different, like to witness it. And right, like I have a coworker that I love to death, and many people would experience her and say she's acting Black, but it's who she is. And when you experience who she is, then you're like, okay, yeah, this is just naturally who she is. And it's just, you know, she grew up in these areas or whatever. But then I went to school people, and it's like, now you're irking my soul when you're doing this, or you're using certain words to speak to me. Don't do that. Don't be like, hey, what's up? Like, no, just like good morning.
You just spoke to Bob and you just said good morning.
Right.
Like, no.
Don't code switch for me.
Exactly.
You don't need to translate, boo. I speak English.
Right. Listen, because I know both ways. Listen, I'm bilingual. Listen, I know Ebonics and I can talk regular. Don't
okay, but I want to get clarity on what we're calling appropriation versus just identifying something, because just earlier we said we were exposed to something and then we liked it, so then we decided to continue to indulge in it. So what if a white person likes rap music and then just decides to listen to it, or likes dreadlocks, so then just decides to lock their hair? Like, at what point does it become appropriation?
So I don't see anything wrong with that. I think there are some white people that they truly are authentically, they love the culture and they respect the culture. I think there's a respect thing to it, but I think some white people may appropriate, and then they do it and they seem to make it theirs and think that they created it, and not giving due diligence or respect to the culture that it came from.
Yeah, I think knowing the why, like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And right, like doing it from a place of like appreciation and really enjoying it versus like
fetishism.
Exactly.
It's like a
right.
fetish.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, because I personally think that it's impossible for us to appropriate, because this is what you set the stage for culture to be, right? And then we're always the subculture. Like, as a minority, I think it's impossible for us to actually appropriate unless it's another minority culture. I think that it's when it gets exploited, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's when, like you said, when you are acting like you created it. It was somebody, they were like, oh, they created
boxer braids.
Yeah. And I was like, wait a minute.
Don't make me scream. Boxer braid. That was Kim, wasn't it?
I don't know which one
she had
it was.
cornrows or something. It was like she created this new trend, boxer braids. And we was all like, who gonna tell her?
We were all sitting there with boxer braids in our hair, like,
First of all, they're cornrows. And first of all, they just braids. These is plaits. I don't know what y'all talking about. It's number one. Like, what are boxer braids? Like, help. Like, police.
Yeah, I think so. And that's what I would call being exploited, is the whole idea that you discover something that you know that you saw a Black person do. Even like the whole Me Too thing. And I think you and I talked about this on one of our episodes. You know, it's like, okay, you know, if anything, if you want to use your privilege to help elevate this message, awesome. But just pay homage to where it came from.
Yes. That's all we ask for. Like, don't just make it and create it and make it seem like it's yours, like that Rachel Dolezal lady. Like, you can love Black culture, that's fine. Nobody's telling you not to have respect for Black culture. But then when you doing stuff and making it yours and making it seem like you're a Black person, like, that was just crazy to me. Like, girl, you're not trans Black. Like, what are we doing?
Speaking of trans Black, I saw, and I think, did I send this to y'all? But it was like, I don't know if maybe it was on TikTok, but it was this guy that said, I identify as a white man. Now the guy was black as black, bliggity black.
I didn't see
and
that.
He was like, yes, I identify. You know how some people identify as being a woman and they're a man or whatever. He was like, I identify as a white man, and I feel like that's why people don't give me the respect, because they keep seeing a black man, but I am indeed a white man. And he literally, the whole, whatever you would call acting white, like he had on those khakis and those, the button down and all the, or maybe it was a polo. I don't know, but he absolutely was like, I identify. He came up with a white name.
I cannot. That sounds like a Dave Chappelle skit. I think that was a Dave Chappelle skit. Oh gosh. All right. Well, shout out to that man. I wonder how that's going. A big trends.
I think it was a skit.
I think it was a
parody.
parody. I think that was absolutely
I was like, is this
a parody.
No. Because I mean, it's 2021. It's crazy out here. So you gotta, I don't know. People really do be crazy. But no, that is.
I do think that what bothers me though is that when white people do something or say something, for some reason it seems to have more merit, right? Like I don't think that we could come and say, oh, I created, like take something, call it something else, and then be like, I created this thing called boxer braids. Like I think that somebody would have done their research, just like how they do their research on me by looking at my LinkedIn to figure out what, let me confirm this. I think that there's this whole question of validity whenever we try to create something.
Or something being ghetto and then they doing it in this high fashion, right? Like big earrings, baby hair, long nails, right?
Our braids. Exactly. Braids was ghetto.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You're right.
Listen, and in 2021, we're still fighting for the Crown Act. We're still fighting for the right to wear our hair the way we want to wear our hair. Like that's crazy. So I definitely agree. Like just doing stuff and then making it your own, or just twisting it to say like to erase our impact on it is what I don't like that at all. So yeah, I was about to say though, but I ain't gonna say that. I'm just leave it and I'll say it off air.
No, I want to know what it is.
Yeah,
like write it down so you don't forget.
Okay.
Right, because we definitely want to know what it is. But I do recall one of my friends saying that most American food is really Black food.
Yes, there's a whole
High on the Hog.
Yes.
What's it called?
What is it called, Scarlett?
High on the Hog.
High on the Hog on Netflix. Everybody should watch that.
That's what she watched, and that was where she gave me this information from. What she was saying, like as the preparers of all the food during slavery, they just gave us this stuff, and we just had to figure out what to do.
They go into all of that. Such a great. But she gave me some examples. I cannot recall anything off the top of my head, but I just thought that was mac and cheese was one.
Yeah, but you know what? I knew. Look, you again. Now here I go again with my stereotypes. But I know mac and cheese with some Black stuff. I know that. You can't tell me cheese.
A Black man created mac and cheese.
A bunch of cheese on noodles.
Yes.
If that's not Black, then I don't know what it is.
That's such a great docuseries. And it's so funny because, again, I do watch a lot of food shows. So I watch a lot of like Top Chef and stuff like that. And it makes me angry. Like every time they're like, oh, like the French cuisine is like the birth of like food and, everything stems from French cuisine. But I'm like, not necessarily, not in America. Like, slaves were cooking. They did everything. So essentially the food roots that we have come from West Africa. Wherever slaves came from, that's where our food history comes from. So it was good to hear them talk about that on High on the Hog. And also this season on Top Chef, shout out to Top Chef. I watched a lot of that, but they talked a lot about like African diaspora food and Black chefs and things like that, which was really dope to see. So I'm glad more of it is now starting to come to light, unfortunately, after, all this time, but better late than never. Now we're really starting to see like our African American history, and it did not begin at slavery.
Right.
Like I'm loving that.
There's a difference between slavery and African American history.
Absolutely.
Or Black history, as I like
Black
to call
history,
it.
For sure. I agree. Yes.
That's good. That's good.
That is. Yes. So if you have not seen How on the Hog, you should watch it. It's so good. Such a great docuseries. Oh my gosh. And just a history lesson in general, like not even if you're not a foodie, whatever, but just a good history lesson on Black America and Black Americans.
Absolutely. So ladies, what is going to go in our to-go box? What are our final thoughts on the subject of acting white or acting Black?
Okay, so I'll start. So I'm out, like I said, throughout this episode today, like I'm really excited about like just having new experiences and opening doors, and barriers are being removed for us to just experience things. So, and not letting us be boxed into, oh, this is what you have to do because you're Black. But no, like we're multifaceted, and you cannot box us into one thing. So we like to skydive, and we like to kayak, and we like to camp, and all of those things. We like to listen to pop music, or anything that seems like well, yeah, I mean, shout out to our other friend TJ. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking about. Who's very eclectic in her music. So yeah, like just don't box us in. So I'm glad their barriers are being broken for us to just experience everything that we want to experience.
Absolutely. And Madam President, what are you taking away?
To bring all of you to whatever space that you enter, right? Whether that is a traditionally Black space, it's a traditionally quote unquote white space, but to bring you in and make it whatever you want, a space where you can exist as you are. Mm-hmm. Even if it's like, it doesn't have to be big and bold, but just your presence there can open the door, right? And being in those spaces so that other people can enter those spaces, right? And have that exposure. So that is what I'm taking away. Like, bring all of you to whatever space that you are in.
Absolutely. What came to mind first was I forgot to say that I feel like volunteering is also perceived as a white thing.
Yeah.
I recall when I was volunteering, I was telling coworkers, they said, is this volunteer or is this community service? So the thought is like, if Black people are volunteering, it must be court ordered. Instead of just me wanting to serve my community. Wow. Never mind the fact that there are 9 amazing Black Greek letter organizations that are built with the premise of serving their, of serving their community, but whatever, right? So I wanted to just throw that out there. But as far as what I'm taking away, it's a reminder for me to make sure that I'm open-minded of how I receive people. So if someone is telling me that they have a new president at their company and it's some stakeholders that I'm working with, to not default to a white man, to be open-minded and to think, oh, can't wait to meet her. Mm-hmm. To just kind of make sure that my default isn't always, so while I may be aware of the stereotypes, I don't want to succumb to them. Mm-hmm. Because I do not want people to count me out. So I don't want to count others out either.
That's good.
Thanks for tuning into Brunch with Besties podcast. Can't wait to hear what Chanel's going to tell us off air. Until next time, peace.